everyone, welcome to today's session. This is Shweta Roy and I welcome everyone to English and More. So today the topic of discussion, the poem that we are going to study is personally my favorite, that is Aunt Jennifer's Tiger by Adrienne Rich. So before I start off with today's poem, I hope everybody had already gone through the previous poem which was dealt by me, that is A Roadside Stand, and you have prepared yourselves. If you have any queries on that poem, if there is any line which you haven't understood, I would definitely like you all to comment in the comment section and please get your doubts clarified before proceeding with the next poem. So now the next poem that we are going to deal with is Aunt Jennifer's Tiger. So from the title itself, it is quite evident that there will be the character of tiger, right? So in our previous grades, we have dealt with tigers. If you remember the poem Tiger in the Zoo, we talked about the freedom of animals in that particular poem, Tiger in the Zoo. Now, do you think that this poem is also going to be something related to freedom? Let us see. So now let us proceed with the beautiful and thought-provoking poem Aunt Jennifer's Tiger. So of course we can understand from the title that there is going to be a character called Aunt Jennifer. So what do we understand from Aunt Jennifer's Tiger? Does Aunt Jennifer has something to do with tigers? So it arouses our curiosity, right? Let us see what is the poem all about. So first we will see the introduction about the poet. So let us understand the poet Adrienne Rich. We have already read one poem of this particular poet Adrienne Rich in our previous grade, and that was again a beautiful poem, The Trees, if you remember, right? So I think you are familiar with the poet already, her style of writing, her usual themes. So recapitulate, and if you have not read The Trees, guys, I would definitely suggest you to go ahead and read that beautiful poem. It's a very, very beautiful poem. It is again one of my personal favorites. So this poet Adrienne Rich was born in Maryland, USA. She's widely known for her involvement in contemporary women's movement. So she was a feminist poet. Yes, as a poet and theorist. So women's movement, she was involved. Involved in the women's movement. If you know, if you know her writing style from The Trees, you would know that even that poem dealt with feminist movement, right? So from here we can predict that this poem also has to do something with the theme of womanhood, right? Okay, so let us see what is its connection with tigers. Why is tiger mentioned here? Let us see that. So she has published 19 volumes of poetry, 3 collections of essay and other writings. A strong resistance to racism and militarism echoes through her work. So basically she was against all those, she was against any kind of discrimination. So racism, yes, even feminism. She was an advocate of feminism, which was definitely against the discrimination of women from men, right? The poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers addresses the constraints of married life a woman experiences. So the thematic essence of this particular poem is related to, again, feminist movement, yes, feminism, yes, not movement in particular, but it is related, it involves the struggles, the hurdles, the obstacles of a woman. Why? Because we are talking about the married life, okay, the constraints of married life of a woman, okay. So before you read, I have already asked you, what does the title of the poem suggest to you? So when you read the title, what do you think the poem is going to be? about. And are you reminded of other poems on tigers? Yes. So we remember Tiger in the Zoo, which we had done in our previous grades, right? So now let us read this poem and see, is there any connectivity of the Aunt Jennifer's tigers with the tiger in the zoo, or is there any other connection? What is it about? Let us find out, right? Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They pace in sleek, chivalric certainty. Aunt Jennifer's tigers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with the ordeals that she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. So now from the poem, when we have read the poem, you have understood why are we calling it Aunt Jennifer's tigers. Yes, we are talking about an embroidery of tigers that Aunt Jennifer is making. So what is she trying to portray? Now that embroidery is of course a piece of Aunt Jennifer's art. Now we all know that art is an expression of ourselves, right? So what is Aunt Jennifer trying to express with the help of her art? And what is the art about? It is an embroidery of a tiger which is prancing across the screen of that embroidered cloth, right? And they are bright topaz denizens. So it's describing the tiger that the aunt is embroidering, right? Okay, so now we will go stanza wise. So Aunt Jennifer's Tigers was written, this is the introduction to the poem, was written in 1951 and it was included in her first book of poetry. What is the name of the book? A Change in the World. So definitely, as I told you, she was a feminist. She was involved in the feminist movement, and I hope you know that feminism was not at all an easy and it was not a one day affair. There were 4 waves of feminism, right? So she explores themes that include, usually in her poems, in the previous one also we have found the theme of gender, power or lack thereof, and marriage. So power, lack of power, and of course marriage, which we will also encounter in this particular poem. These are all seen through the time and dedication that Jennifer gives to her needle point. That is, Aunt Jennifer is embroidering. So her needle point, she's dedicated in her artwork. Aunt Jennifer's Tigers is a multi-layered poem that uses the images of sewn tigers. She is, sewing. She's embroidering to talk about the institution of marriage. Very, very important point. Please note it. Right? So she is using images of sewn tiger to talk about the institution of marriage. How? We will see. Through the short lines of the poem, the speaker embodies the struggle of this woman. Which woman? Aunt Jennifer. That she's going through, and juxtaposes it against the tigers that she's creating. So there is a sharp contrast between Aunt Jennifer herself and what she's expressing through her art, that is the tigers that she is embroidering. There's a sharp contrast. Their power is contrasted against her own lack of power. So the tigers that she is embroidering, they are powerful as opposed to her own lack of power in the institution of marriage, which is universally applicable to women in general. Okay, so let us talk about the first stanza, which is all about Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. So first stanza, these are the divisions basically. First stanza, Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, they have been described. Second stanza is about Aunt Jennifer herself. And third stanza is amalgamating and bringing both of them together. So third stanza brings the two together, where a part of Aunt Jennifer is preserved in the tigers she has stitched. Very, very important. Towards the end we will see that a part of Aunt Jennifer is preserved in the tiger that she has stitched or she has created. In three short stanzas, the speaker demonstrates how marriage is an institution and marriage has failed to allow Aunt Jennifer the full realization of herself. How the artistic expression through her needlework provides a space where she can project her aspirations, her desires, which have been bottled up inside her, and how her art will live beyond her death as an expression of her identity. So yes, whenever that art would be seen by anybody, it would remind that person of Aunt Jennifer, and then she would be immortalized. Her identity would be preserved, right? And it would be, living beyond her death. That is, it would be immortalized. So let us go through the first stanza, which we have already read. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen. So, according to the poet, you can see how the tigers are leaping forward. Prancing is leaping forward. Now, screen, as I told you, it refers to the canvas on which Aunt Jennifer is, embroidering the tiger. So, in the very first line, it is giving us the impression of the art of Aunt Jennifer. How is her art? What is she trying to portray with the help of those tigers? The tigers are free. The tigers are bold. The tigers are hopeful. As I told you, we will see how it is in sharp contrast to her own state. Okay, they are bright and vibrant like topaz. Now, topaz is a gemstone. It's a yellow colored precious stone. Okay, so the color of the tiger, which are bright yellow, they are compared to the gemstone. Okay, so the tigers are very bright, very appealing, and they are the denizens are inhabitants of a green world. Now here, green world, of course, it's talking about, literally it's talking about the jungle, the forest, but it is also symbolic. Green and topaz, these are the colors which are used to represent happiness and prosperity. So, the tigers are thriving in the forest which Aunt Jennifer has stitched for them. The tigers in that needlework, they are free, they are uninhabited, untamed and unafraid of men who are standing beneath the tree. Again, you will see that this is in sharp contrast to Aunt Jennifer's own state, because she is not free in the institution of marriage and she fears the men. But here the tigers, they are not fearful of the men beneath the tree. So here we find, of course, alliteration. As you can see, the description of the movement, pace, they pace in sleek chivalric certainty. So the C sound is being repeated in the initial stanza, initial syllable. So that is alliteration. So the tigers therefore stand as the symbol of liberty, which Aunt Jennifer has been denied. So if you remember tiger in the zoo, that also had to do with, something associated with freedom, but there it talked about caged tiger, as opposed to this. Here Aunt Jennifer's tigers are denizens of a world of green and they are free. Now chivalry, which is a trait dating back the Middle Ages. Now in the Middle Ages, chivalry was a code of conduct which was followed by the knights. I hope you know a little bit about the knights of King Arthur, right? So they usually followed the code of courtesy, behavioral codes they followed, like courtesy, politeness. There are a lot of Arthurian stories and which would relate to these behavioral codes. If you are interested, you can definitely read few of them. They are very interesting, right? So especially in relation to women, they used to follow these codes like courtesy, politeness, etc. So by the time we reach the second stanza, we understand the code of conduct demanded by marriage has also forced Jennifer to play the role of the dutiful wife. Okay. Now as a result of these codes of conduct which is imposed on Aunt Jennifer by the society, which she is forced or compelled to follow in the institution of marriage. She is repressing her freedom, her individuality. Her individuality is severely repressed because of the code of conduct, the so-called code of conduct, the behavioral norms that a woman is expected to follow after marriage, right? So that is the significance of the word chivalry. So the poet says that those tigers do not fear men. So men are probably in this case jungle, so yes, hunters, okay? So hunters, and tree refers to the forest which exists in the world. The symbol of men under tree gives the impression of humans dominating the nature, okay? So however, here the situation is different. Why? Because the tigers, they are not at all afraid of those hunters. Now coming to stanza 2, where we would talk about Aunt Jennifer herself. So let us see what she has to say. Aunt Jennifer's finger fluttering through her wool. Again alliteration, finger fluttering. And even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of uncle's wedding band, very very important, sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. Of course, here we have a run-on line in both the first line and the second line, right? And the thought is carried to the next line. So here she talks about her condition, which is in sharp contrast to the tigers that she has embroidered. So her fingers are fluttering through her wool. So here flutter, which is used for birds when they flap their wings very quickly. But here it is actually referring to the inability of Aunt Jennifer to use her fingers. Okay, now the fluttering of fingers also brings to our mind the free movement of birds, butterflies, anybody's who have the winged creatures' free movement, right? So one would expect Aunt Jennifer enjoys doing what she is doing. So she that is our expectation. But alternatively, the fluttering of fingers may also betray signs of anxiety. When do our fingers flutter? When we are nervous, when we are anxious, and also when we are weak. In these conditions, our fingers, they flutter, right? So that is the case with Aunt Jennifer. It is difficult for her to pull the ivory needle. So she's facing problems while carving the tigers. Now there are two reasons for that. There could be two reasons for that. It is probable that aunt's husband is not allowing her to do that. So again, it is a cause. It is because of the permission that she needs to take. So again, the concept of women who have to seek their husband's permission to express themselves. So they are always repressed, okay, especially after marriage. Okay, that is what the poet is trying to portray here. So, or she has become weak due to psychological problems. Why? Because of her disturbing marriage. Okay, the next two lines are very important because they are depicting the reality. According to the poet, the massive weight, now this is an oft quoted line, this is a very important line, the weight of uncle's wedding band. So obviously she's not talking literally about the wind, the ring is not literally heavy. She is referring to the heaviness of marriage, the burdens of marriage that she is shouldering after her marriage. Okay, so here the poet has used metonymy, which is a figurative poetic device, which refers to something by using an object closely associated with it. So here it is used to describe the matrimonial disaster of Aunt Jennifer. The weight of the wedding band is actually representing, so it is used to represent something else. So figure of speech, which is what is metonymy, it refers to something by using an object closely associated with it. So it is referring to marriage by using an object. By using what object? By using the object of wedding ring, which is closely associated with marriage. Okay, so that is the metonymy. Okay, so she's talking about the sad and unfortunate married life that she has been through. So the ring that seems to fit heavily is again in contrast to the weightlessness of the fluttering fingers, as they have mentioned in the, as she has mentioned in the initial line of the first line of the second stanza. Please note this contrast because this is another poetic device. So though her needlework is the expression of herself, it is the wedding ring which weighs the finger down, which attempts to repress her. So she tries to carve, but she's finding it very difficult to pull the ivory ring, to pull the ivory needle. Why? Because her ring is obstructing. So symbolically, the wedding ring which weighs is putting her finger down, okay, when she's attempting to express herself freely. That means her marriage, the ordeals that she has suffered, that is obstructing her, that is, like a hurdle in her expression. It is repressing her individuality, right? So the fact that the symbolic heaviness of her married life constrains her art, very, very important line. The symbolic heaviness, what is the symbolic heaviness? The wedding ring, which is, which is constraining her expression of freedom through her art, which is her final attempt of self-expression. So that is definitely speaking about her marriage. Now the ivory needle and the wool, that is again symbolic of exploitation of animals. Yes, this is another interpretation, because how do we get wool, ivory? They are all got by from animals. We get them from animals. Now sometimes, of course, animals are killed in order to obtain the same, right? So yes, exploitation of animals by men. Perhaps these are the same men whom she talks about in the first stanza, who stands like, who stands under the tree, who stand under the trees, and men like uncle, her husband. Okay, so man has traditionally exploited whoever or whatever that can be exploited, both within and outside his species. That means she's trying to say that man has always exploited within his species. Within his species is women. Outside his species is the hunters exploiting animals. So the figure of the man stands as a looming presence in the life of Aunt Jennifer, as it does in the needlework featuring the tigers. So the juxtaposition of the ivory needle to the wedding ring, that is again hinting at the restrictive nature of the institution of marriage. So ivory ring with ivory needle is again a sign of exploitation of animals by men. Okay, and then the ring is exploitation of men, uncle here, her husband, and whom is he exploiting? Aunt, right? So yes, men within and outside his species, he is exploiting. That is what the poet is trying to say here. The gloomy, closed and claustrophobic domestic space of the second stanza, in which the aunt is trapped, is contrasted with the open, spacious and natural atmosphere. So if you see, when she's portraying the tigers, she's portraying them in natural space, in open environment, in spacious environment. That is her own desire to escape that gloomy and claustrophobic domestic life, domestic space, which she is in now after marriage, right? So she is of course not happy in the man-made institution of marriage, which is again in sharp contrast to the free denizens of the world of green, the tigers. And finally, we come to the last stanza. When aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. So here she is presenting the reader with Aunt Jennifer's lifeless body. Okay, so when aunt is dead, lifeless, right? So the speaker becomes important in this poem, and she is also capable of foreseeing the consequences of aunt's marriage. So when you please notice, the second stanza describes the aunt working on the needlework, and that is in present continuous tense. If you look at the words fluttering, present continuous. The final stanza talks about the future tense, will go on. Okay, so that is foretelling aunt's fate, right? So yes, when Aunt Jennifer dies, her lifeless hands will be surrounded by, again it will be still ringed, right? So it will be surrounded by great troubles. Ordeals means troubles. Which she was mastered by. That means she was overpowered by great troubles. So even after her death, her ring will remain as a testament of her unhappy marriage in which she was trapped. So she isn't active agent who is, by this time she's not active stitching the tapestry, but now she becomes a passive agent, passive object that is being acted on, right? So similar to the tapestry of the tigers, she has become an object shaped by the pressures of social forces. So the tapestry of the tigers, which was shaped by her fingers, she has also become an object which is shaped by the pressures of social forces, especially the institution of marriage. So the tool used was ivory needle in the tiger's case, right? And it is the weddings. So that is how the tool to shape the tigers was ivory needle, which is again talking about the exploitative nature, because how do we get ivory? Obviously from elephants. So again exploitation, killing of elephants. So how are the tigers shaped? By that tool. Okay, and in case of Aunt Jennifer, it is the wedding ring. So wedding ring symbolizing her marriage and its heaviness, its heaviness, burdens basically. So after her death, however, the tigers in the panel will go on prancing and they will be proud, unafraid. The tiger in Aunt Jennifer's tigers are representative as much of the artist as of the art itself. So it is representing the art and the artist, right? So it is a representation of the personality of repressed by social forces. It is, the aunt is repressed by social forces, and it is also the expression of a marginalized female voice, right? So Aunt Jennifer's tigers, like the tigers which are stitched on the screen, they stand as a political expression because of marginalized female voice. So yes, that's a political expression and also an artistic one. So that was the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. I hope you enjoyed the poem and I hope you have understood the depth of it. It has a lot of depth, symbolic meaning. So all these are very, very important. Now talking about the theme, as you have already seen throughout the poem, the poet is definitely talking about the female role in home, that is women's domestic sphere after marriage, and how Aunt Jennifer felt it very claustrophobic, and that is the reason why she wanted to express her freedom through her art, and that is the reason why she is creating those tigers who are in sharp contrast to her repressive soul, repressive individuality, right? Then female role in marriage, of course, the burdens that she had to, the ordeals the exploitative nature of the marriage. And then animals as symbols. We have seen tiger as a symbol, women and nature. So like women, even nature is exploited. And who are exploiting? Both men. That is what the poet is trying to say here. Patriarchal power. Yes, the society, it's a patriarchal society. So men dominating women, even in marriage. So and also so men like to dominate, not just within his species but beyond his species also. And it talks about individual freedom. Yes, freedom from this claustrophobic nature, claustrophobic nature of claustrophobic domestic environment. And art as an escapism. Yes, she's expressing her repressed self through her art by creating those tigers who are free, which is again in sharp contrast to her state, right? Now coming to the poetic devices, a few of them I have already discussed when we were dealing with the poem. Now the others are, of course, the rhyme scheme is this one. 3 verses, all quatrains. Quatrains means 4 lines, okay? We have 3 verses, each containing 4 lines. Full end rhyme in a scheme. So end rhyme as in the, I'll talk about end rhyme. Basically it means the end part should rhyme, okay? So the rhyme scheme is AABB. So yeah, AABBCC and so on. I have already talked about alliteration. Now end rhyme, please note, it happens at the end of the line. So here in this particular poem we have found end lines, end rhyme. For example, if you see green, screen, so the last part is rhyming. Tree, certainty, the last part is rhyming, okay? And then we have a couplet. What is a couplet? 2 lines. So they do not fear the men beneath the tree, they pace in sleek chivalric certainty. So that is a couplet, right? Now coming to the structure of Aunt Jennifer's Tiger, it is a 3 stanza poem. We have 3 verses, 3 stanzas, and we have quatrains, so 4 lines each. Rhyme scheme is AABB with couplets changing end sounds from stanza to stanza. So this is the structure of the poem. So that was all about Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope you have all your doubts related to this poem I have been able to address. If you have any further doubts, do not forget to ask in the comment section. And yes guys, do not forget to like the video, share with your friends, and if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. So thank you, take care, we will see you very soon with another lesson in the next class. Till then, bye bye.